All right, so corporate ghoul Nancy Pelosi, the manifestation of the corporate rot within the American political system, is back at it again, calling for a strong Republican Party. So this isn't the first time that she has done this. She's done this plenty of times throughout the years, but this is the latest time that she's done this. And of course, she's doing this at the same time as Republicans all across the country, both at the state level and the federal level, are obviously proposing anti-abortion bills, as well as anti-LGBT bills, as well as doing their typical Republican shtick of pushing austerity and pushing militarism, etc. So here's Nancy Pelosi calling for a strengthening of that party that represents those ideals. So let's go ahead and hear what she had to say.
I mean, the fossil fuel industry, they weigh in so significantly. I mean, how could it be that nobody on the Senate side cares, and the Senate cares about climate? Some of them do, and they talk about it. When it comes to the votes, it just isn't there. They just aren't there. So rather than saying, well, we have to defeat them, no, let's just try to persuade them. I want the Republican Party to take back the party, take it back to where you were, where you cared about a woman's right to choose, and you cared about the environment, and all. Here I am, Nancy Pelosi, saying this country needs a strong Republican Party, and we do. Not a cult, but a strong Republican Party.
Okay, so listen, no, we don't. We don't need a strong Republican Party. We need a Republican Party that is completely defeated in every way possibly imaginable. So listen, again, this isn't the first time that she said this. She said this also a couple years ago. You can see here from Newsweek, Nancy Pelosi says America needs a strong Republican Party, not a hijacked cult. So essentially the same exact thing that she was just saying there 2 years later after experiencing, the end of the Donald Trump presidency and the manifestation of the complete continuing of his influence within the Republican Party, a doubling down on everything that Trump represents. So she's seen this exact dynamic continue for years now, and she still is turning around and saying, no, this isn't actually representative of Republicans' core ideals of caring about the environment and being pro-choice. I mean, what the fuck is she actually talking about here? The Republican Party, at least in the modern incarnation of it, has never been pro-life. They have never been caring about the environment and ready to address the issue of climate change. So when the fuck is she even talking about? I mean, if you go and look at the history of the Republican Party since Roe v. Wade, for example, was implemented as the precedent since like 1973, literally immediately after that decision came down, Republicans within this party, although starting as a minority within this party, immediately began to organize. They instituted things like the Federalist Society, etc., which basically nominated and put forth 3 of the Supreme Court nominees that Donald Trump ended up nominating, right? Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, all of them came from the Federalist Society that was started decades and decades ago for explicit political reasons like overturning Roe v. Wade. So this is, it's not a separate entity of Donald Trump versus the modern Republican Party since the Reagan administration. No, Donald Trump is the modern incarnation, the culmination of everything that Republicans have been fighting for decades. So there isn't any, taking back the Republican Party from Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is the Republican Party, and not just as a figurehead, but on all of the substantive policy issues that he represents and that he has been fighting for. And, you can see this exemplified by who they like to praise within the Republican Party, right? Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, the rest of corporate Democrats, they'll come out and they'll praise people like Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger for being against the January 6th insurrection. And it's like, okay, applause for you for being against a literal insurrection and trying to overturn a valid election. That's fucking great. I guess you deserve a pat on the back for that. Not really, but if you go and look at those same exact politicians' voting records, they're in line with Donald Trump like 90 to 100% of the time. So how are you going to pretend like there's anything to take this party back from? I mean, maybe you could remove Donald Trump as the figurehead, but whoever would replace him, Ron DeSantis or whoever else, even if it was a Mitt Romney type person, they would be nominally different on their appearance and their projection to the public. They'd be, they wouldn't be tweeting on Twitter every couple days or something as Donald Trump was doing. But on the policy level, on the substance of all of it, they're they're all in line with Donald Trump. So pretending as if there's anything to take back the Republican Party from is completely delusional. And she wasn't the only person who's been saying this. Obviously, Joe Biden also has been falling for this delusion that there's any salvageable nature to the Republican Party. So here, just as a reminder, Biden says GOP ain't your father's Republican Party. This is the MAGA party now. So again, there is no distinguishing between the Republican Party and the MAGA party. It's just, it's become more cult-like around a central figure. But again, on the underlying policies, there is no difference between a Donald Trump and a George W. Bush, really. Or if there are differences, you could point to them on the margins. But they're all pushing the same thing. They're pushing neoliberalism. They are pushing, serving corporate America. They are pushing austerity for working class Americans. And they're pushing an expansion of militarism around the world. I mean, that's exactly what the Republican Party has always been fighting for. Again, since, if you want to go back all the way to the Reagan administration or wherever you want to go, this has been very consistent what they've been fighting for decades in this country. So, Nancy Pelosi coming out and calling for them to take back their party from what exactly? I mean, at the beginning of this clip, she's referencing the fossil fuel industry, right? And that's perfectly fair to criticize Republicans for taking bribes from the fossil fuel industry to oppose climate legislation or to go out and lie about climate change in general. That's great to criticize them for that. But at the same time as Republicans are blocking all climate legislation, who else is? I mean, you have Joe Manchin, a millionaire coal baron who is profiting from this fossil fuel industry, who takes the same bribes that Republicans do, if not more than Republicans do, from the fossil fuel industry. And he is the one person within your party that is blocking any meaningful action on climate change. So how are you going to sit here and say, Republicans, you need to take back your party, when members of your own party, who are basically given complete free reign to set your entire legislative agenda, are doing the exact same goddamn thing? There is nothing to take back the Republican Party from. This is what they've been fighting for decades in this country. So this is what you can expect from the Democratic establishment, whether it's Joe Biden delusionally thinking that he was going to come in office and that there would be some great awakening within the Republican Party in a post-Trump America. He was completely delusional. He thought after 8 years under the Obama administration of guys like Mitch McConnell blocking every single legislative priority that they wanted to get through the entire way through, not, acting in good faith throughout the entire process. He experienced that for 8 years as the vice president under Obama. And for some reason, he thought that dynamic was going to be different, as if Republicans were going to magically wake up one day and stop serving the industries that, as Nancy Pelosi was pointing out there, have been funneling money into their campaigns and coffers and, the RCC for years and years and years now. This isn't, anything that can be taken back unless you want to talk about taking back both parties, the Democrat and Republican parties, from the corporate interests that are bribing them at a mass scale. And Nancy Pelosi should know something about that, because the whole reason she's in this leadership position within the House of Representatives in the Democratic Party is specifically because of her ability to out fundraise every other member of the Democratic Party on corporate donations from billionaires and from billion-dollar corporations. That's her specialty. So the same reason why Republicans are doing massively unpopular things, the same reason why Republicans endlessly push austerity and militarism, is the same goddamn reason that the Democratic Party is following in their footsteps and continuing to shift to the right over time while alienating their base of voters and young people and working class people. It's the same exact dynamic. So she's calling out the Republican Party here for their corruption. Fine, maybe look at your own corruption and, your husband who's going out and selling stocks and doing insider trading, essentially. Maybe start to get to the actual root of that corruption. Maybe start to, instead of pushing for a strong resurgence of a Republican Party that takes us back to the days of the Reagan administration, that is substantively the same as the Trump administration on economic and military policy, instead of trying to appeal to a stronger Republican Party, I don't know, maybe try to make a strong Democratic Party that isn't completely ruled by a single millionaire coal baron or Kirsten Sinema doing her cutesy little thumbs down on the increase to the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Maybe start to confront the corruption within your own party to strengthen the Democratic Party. Maybe try to pull young people back into your party by, I don't know, pushing Joe Biden to cancel student debt, legalizing weed, doing any number of things, literally just one single thing that you could possibly do to actually earn the votes of the American people, to motivate young people to show up for you at the polls. But they're not doing that, and we are literally months away from the 2022 midterms, where Democrats are on track to get absolutely curb stomped by Republicans. And here you have the leader of the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives coming out and calling for a stronger Republican Party. It's just completely fucking pathetic.